Well, should we get started with some introductions?
Let's do it.
102, we've got over 100 people here. Hey, everybody, welcome to this webinar called Keeping It Current, Why Software Updates Matter. My name is Barry Eitel. I am the editorial director at the National Cybersecurity Alliance. We're a nonprofit focused on empowering a more safe, interconnected world. Across from me, across the country from me, is Cliff Steinhauer. Want to introduce yourself to everybody, Cliff?
Yep, I'm Cliff. I'm the Director of Information Security and Engagement here at the National Cybersecurity Alliance, and I am happy to be here with Barry, my good buddy in New York, talking about software updates. One of the core
Yes.
four themes that we're talking about
Yeah.
pretty much all the time, but really highlighting here as we go into Cybersecurity Awareness Month, right, Barry?
Yeah. Yeah, these have been fun. Yeah, so if you're just joining us, as everyone is, thanks for coming to the Keeping It Current Why Software Updates Matter webinar. This is our fourth and final edition of the Core 4 webinar series, and these have been 30-minute webinars talking about all sorts of important topics related to our Core 4. The core four is, of course, uh, identifying and reporting phishing, having strong passwords, and using a password manager. The third one is keeping your software updated, which we're talking about today. And then the fourth one is turning on multi-factor authentication. And in case you missed the other webinars, don't fear, don't worry. We got recordings on our website and our YouTube channel. And this webinar will also be recorded and will be uploaded to our website and YouTube channel by tomorrow morning. Please leave any questions in the Q&A box. We'll try to get through as many of those as possible at the end of the webinar. Um, all right, are we ready to get started on talking about software updates?
Let's do it, Barry.
All right, let's go. All right. We've all gotten those update your software notifications on our phones, our tablets, our computers, our smartwatches. It can be really easy to click remind me later because you're busy, you got 37 browser tabs open. But these software updates are actually more important than you might think. Aside from introducing some fun new features to your devices, what do these software updates do in terms of security?
Absolutely, Barry. So, software updates oftentimes include fixes to the software known as bugs.
Hmm.
And sometimes those bugs can affect the security of the device. So, bad guys, cyber criminals, will actually look for vulnerabilities in devices that they can then exploit to gain access to your device and to all of your personal data. So, software companies patch these vulnerabilities in software updates. So, when you apply a software update, you're actually closing the holes and closing the door to attackers on your device. So, it's really important that we keep our software up to date so that attackers don't have a way to take over our devices.
And I don't know if you mentioned this, but the attackers actually learn what the bugs are when the software companies release the updates.
Exactly. So a lot of vulnerabilities are actually published in either research papers or maybe in the media or on blogs. And so when a software company releases an update, they also publish a change log. So they say what they changed in the software. And so attackers will keep an eye on that and they'll see that the software company published an update to the software that patched a security vulnerability. And then what they can actually do is they can scan the internet for internet-facing devices that haven't been patched yet. So that's a really common way that attackers can find unpatched systems and then go try to exploit them. There are some systems that face the internet that people maybe forget about. Individual wise, that could be your router, that could be, any kind of device that connects directly to the internet. Business wise, that could be your servers, that could be your infrastructure, your external facing applications that are connected to the internet as well. So we've seen a lot of attacks in the recent years due to what we call zero-day vulnerabilities. So a zero-day vulnerability means it's a vulnerability in a piece of software that doesn't have an update for it. And so as IT admins and as security admins, we have to keep an eye on those and what software we use. And if a zero day pops up for a piece of software that we use, we'd probably want to take that piece of software or that equipment offline or do some kind of mitigation, listening to the software vendor as to how to make sure that that device won't be compromised. So on an individual level, software updates come out and they usually patch vulnerabilities, and sometimes those vulnerabilities are being actively exploited or actively being used by bad guys to try to take over devices. So it's important to apply those updates as soon as possible.
The zero-day terminology, was also a hit Netflix series. The zero-day terminology comes from the idea that it's like the product was shipped with the vulnerability, like exists. Correct? Is that where that idea comes from? It's like day one or day zero,
Right.
the
Yeah. So day
problem.
zero means, we just found out about this vulnerability and there's no patch available yet.
Yeah,
Day one is, okay, we know about it and we might have a patch ready. So, you definitely want to make sure that you're patching those as soon as possible.
yeah. Okay, so I own lots of devices. How do I know if it's time to update my software? Is there a way to keep up with these updates?
There is. So there's two ways you can actually manually check for updates by going into your settings.
Hmm.
Usually, if you can search your settings, you just type in updates, and then it'll
Hmm.
bring you to the updates section of your settings, and you can just say, manually like check for updates. Sometimes they'll come up with a pop-up or an alert that will tell you that there needs to be an update applied. So you want to go ahead and react to that and make sure you don't forget about it. A lot of people will kind of like dismiss it and come back later, but you don't want to forget to do that.
Yeah.
But one of the best ways to do that is to actually use automatic updates. So
Yes.
many, many types of software and systems have an automatic update feature that will then automatically apply updates when they're available. And then you might just get a prompt to restart your machine or restart the piece of software. A really common one is Chrome. I see it when people screen share on Zoom like all the time. Right there in the top right corner, it'll say, relaunch Chrome to update.
Yeah.
So that's something you want to do. It'll actually shut it down and bring all your windows back up.
Yeah.
You might have to sign into some things, but that's a
Yeah.
really quick and easy way to do that.
Yeah. Um, yeah, you usually don't have to worry about your browser tabs going away, and there's always that history section if you want to get those back. But yeah, so if my device is asking me to restart to, get these new updates, should I do that quickly?
Yeah, there's no reason to wait for most of
Mhm.
us. I think on an individual level, we're not usually running any kind of critical systems on our home devices and personal devices that we can't apply an update. I know that a lot of people sometimes worry that an update could break their device or cause something not to work. But from my experience, that's usually not the case on consumer devices. So I don't think there's any reason to wait to apply the software updates. I think you can go ahead and, if they're pushing it out, especially in an automatic update, you're probably okay to go ahead and apply that update. And if it does break it, usually you're not the only one. And if that happens, they usually push out another update pretty quickly after that. I know Apple's done that in recent years, to fix whatever they didn't get right in that update.
Yeah, there made some a software update made some headlines about a year ago, correct? That that was a pretty bad update, but I think that almost serves as the example, what the exception that proves the rule that
Yeah, exactly. There, for every 100 updates you
yeah,
apply, like half of one will be a problem.
yeah,
So, and out of those 100 updates that you apply, 50 of them are going to fix a critical zero-day vulnerability, whereas the one that might break something is the exception. So you're definitely a lot more secure to apply the updates as soon as possible, assuming the risk of something breaking versus the risk of not updating and getting hacked.
yeah, yeah. It's better just to go and do it. Um, Okay, so let's talk a little bit about automatic updates. We mentioned them. Are they enough to keep me safe?
For the most part, yes. I have found that some of my devices, even though they have automatic updates turned on, I'll read about an update for that device before the update is actually applied. So if you're like me and you're really security conscious, you may want to go in and just manually check for updates every now and then, even though automatic updates are applied. The way automatic updates work is that they're rolled out in waves, in phases, so that doesn't overwhelm the servers. So, for example, Microsoft, they have what they call Patch Tuesday. So, the
Mhm.
second Tuesday of every month, they release patches for Windows and other Microsoft products. If they were to roll out that update immediately to every single Windows device, they would crash their systems. So they have to phase it in over time, over the next week or so, using the Windows automatic update process. And so you may not get the update that first day unless you manually go in and say, check for updates. And then if you do that, usually that will move you kind of to the front of the line. So if people are actively requesting the updates, then that would be the time that you would get updated. And so same thing with like my Apple devices. I'm an Apple user. I'll hear about an update on the news or something, and maybe if I don't do anything, maybe a few days later, my device will say, "Oh, it's going to restart overnight and apply this update." But if I wanted to, I could go in and manually force it to do it sooner.
Here's a related question. How often would you recommend that we might, restart our computer, restart our phone?
I think best case is once a week.
Hmm.
And that might seem like pretty frequent to a lot of people.
Yeah,
But I think, you know, especially when I think about this for my own self, if I restart my machine once a week, it's going to run a lot smoother.
yeah.
If I don't restart it for more than a week, then some things start to kind of back up, and um, it just isn't fresh. And so
Mhm.
one of the things that people can do if your computer is acting slowly or something's not really working quite right is to just restart it. I think that's like the the basic easiest thing that you can ever do to fix your computer or fix your machine is to just restart that thing.
Mhm.
Restarting it will apply any updates that may have gotten kind of stuck or
Yeah.
that were applied and or that were downloaded and installed but not fully applied because there wasn't a restart. Sometimes we miss the notifications or we might have dismissed it without thinking. So it's a good rule of thumb, I think, to maybe, either restart it every Friday afternoon before you leave for the weekend or first thing Monday morning, just kind of get that thing fresh and you can start it fresh with that week.
And I think a lot of Apple devices, you'll hear this term that they're built to be always on, correct? But sometimes it's best just shut it off, turn it back on,
Yeah.
freshens it up a bit.
Yeah, same thing. When I experience slowness or sluggishness on my phone,
Yeah,
maybe like poor connection and things like that, a simple restart usually gets it going right away.
yeah.
And that'll also kind of push some of the app updates as well. So
Yep.
your apps update separately from the operating system.
Mhm.
So sometimes restarting it can actually push those out.
Oh, here's a question. Would you recommend that you turn on your phone, or tablet, would you recommend doing automatic updates for your apps?
Yes, absolutely. That's super helpful because I don't know how many apps I have in my phone, but it's a
Yeah.
lot. And for me to remember to go manually do that would be super, super time consuming. And because if you wait a long time, you'll pile up a whole list of them.
Yeah.
And then it takes, 2 hours to
Yep.
update them
Yep.
versus them kind of doing it in the background on their own.
All right, let me lay out a scenario for you. Say I'm surfing the internet and I get a pop-up that says my device is outdated. I get a little window. It says I need to update now. I need to download something. How do I know if I get, the window that says I need to do a software update? How do I know that it's safe and that and are these ever used as a way to scam or hack someone?
That's an excellent question and a great point. Yes, there are instances where attackers will use the premise of a software update to get you to click something. I'd say the biggest difference is those updates or those notifications rather are going to come from your system updates. So if you're a Windows user, you're probably used to seeing notifications come from the bottom right of your screen, and it will say, Windows Update or something like that, or a system notification. There are something called browser notifications as well. And so I recommend people turning this feature off, actually. Do not allow
Mm.
browser notifications because they can come through the same system notification way and look like a
Mm.
system notification. Now, I think that the icon is different. So, like, say you use Chrome and you have Chrome updates turned on, or Chrome notifications turned on, that is, it'll come over on the system update screen, but the Chrome logo will be there. So, red flag would be a Chrome logo and then a message about a Windows update
Mhm.
and then thinking about where you are in your browser tabs. So if you're on some kind of random site that's talking about something else, and you get this update thing down at the bottom, you might be at a site that's trying to push a malicious link. So kind of start to look at where the update messages come from and get used to that because they can be used for malicious purposes. If you get a full-on pop-up window from your browser that says something about an update, that's not how that usually works. So you can feel safe closing that. Most of the time, there might be a little banner or there's the little green kind of button at the top right of your browser that says, close to update and restart Chrome. Those types of things. That's how it really kind of looks. So browser windows popping up or notifications popping up from your browser are not usually where software updates will come from.
Yeah, not to to touch on, to give you a little preview if you haven't seen our if you didn't see our Core 4 webinar on phishing and scams, one big tactic that scammers use is to create a sense of urgency. And how would a scammer, try to use the idea of software updates or trying to fix a hack to create this sense of urgency in an innocent computer user like myself or anyone in our audience?
Yeah, well, attackers are security people too. They understand security concepts and they understand that a lot of people are told, like we're telling you now, to keep your software updated. So using that trusted pretext
Mm.
of the advice is to keep your software updated, they know that you're looking for that sometimes. And so they can trick people into clicking on links that aren't legitimate. You usually won't get an email about a software update. You usually won't get a text about a software update or a phone call about a software update. Notifications, I think, are the really dangerous one, and I advise people to turn browser notifications off because they have been misused quite frequently. Um, and then just to educate yourself about what legitimate updates really do
Yeah.
look like. Um,
Which again is you go through your settings, correct?
you go through your settings, yeah, or you go through your app store. So
Mhm.
for Microsoft apps and for Apple Store apps, you have to go to the App Store to go then go check for updates there.
All right. Okay, well, what should we do if we have a device, we've had it for a couple of years, we love it. It's our, we got an Apple One or an Apple Two, and it doesn't support the latest software. I can't run, iOS, whatever. What are we on? 17 or something?
I think we're on
I can't
18 now, iOS
18,
18.
can't run my iOS 18, I guess just OS 18
Hmm.
on my Apple II anymore. What should I do if my device doesn't support the latest software update?
Yeah, this is a an interesting question, right? Like there are lengths of time that companies will no longer support a device. And so actually we're coming up right now on the end of Windows 10 support. So if you're running a
Mm,
device with Windows 10, Microsoft is no longer going to provide
yeah.
software updates for it, I think starting in October of this year. And they
And if you're
announced
running
that
Windows XP, it's
Windows
been
XP
obsolete for a
hasn't been
while.
supported for a
Yeah.
really long time. I think Windows 7 was the one that got deprecated back in like 2019. So, it unfortunately the best answer is that you need to get a piece of hardware that can support the latest
Mhm.
software. And I don't love that because I think that there are plenty of machines that are fully capable of running today's, meeting your needs for today. Unfortunately, the software companies just don't want to support them anymore because it costs a lot of money, and they'd rather look forward than look backward 10 years. Um, if you're a highly technical user, you can install Linux on an old machine and it will run fine and it will be supported. So you can look at alternative operating systems for older machines that are still supported and that can run on that older machine. Unfortunately, Windows just won't be one of them. So, call it planned obsolescence, call it a money-making funnel, whatever you want to say about the capitalistic tendencies of these software companies. Running outdated old software is risky. So if you have to run an old machine, I wouldn't do any banking on it. I wouldn't make it your critical daily driver, work machine. And if you have to run something like that, it probably needs to be disconnected from the internet and used with a lot of caution.
Is there a way to check if something like because this has been an issue that we raised alarms about last year, I believe, where internet routers aren't supported by updates. Is there a way to check if your router is has the latest security?
There are ways to check that, yes. If your internet service provider supplies your router, you can call them and ask if my router is still supported, especially if you think you've had that router for maybe 5 years or more.
Yeah.
I did encounter this with my past internet service provider before I moved into my current location, and they recommended and sent a new router. So check with your internet service provider. If you provided your own router yourself, Google the model number
Mhm.
and the make and model of your router and just check that it's no longer supported or not. If it's no longer supported, then that means you're vulnerable and everything you connect to that router is potentially vulnerable as well.
Uh-oh. Well, Cliff, do you have any final thoughts before we head to the Q&A?
I mean, I think for most people, turning on automatic updates is the best way forward. And then restarting your device once a week, if you can remember to, is going to really put you ahead of the curve.
All right. So I'm getting into the Q&A here. Please add any to the Q&A session. We'll try to get to as many as we can. Here's one. I don't get operating system updates anymore on my phone because my Android has reached end of life. Is there any way we just kind of answered this? Is there any way around this part apart from replacing the phone?
Um, I don't know a lot about Android
Yeah.
devices. I mean, Android itself is the operating system, so the phone model, I'm not sure what the phone model is here, but the short answer is no. You probably need to replace the device to be
Mhm.
able to get current updates. I'm sitting on a couple of old Macs, and a couple of old iPhones, and there's just nothing you can really do unless you're gonna, pick a flavor of Linux and throw it on your device. And I don't know if that's really possible to do on a mobile device like that. So
And today is Patch Tuesday, correct?
I suppose
That's
it
what
is.
someone says in the chat.
Yes.
I think so. It's the second
Yeah, I
second
see
Tuesday.
that. Yeah, absolutely. It is Patch Tuesday. So go ahead. If you want to get the latest update, you can go ahead and go check for updates in your system settings. And I get a newsletter from Brian Krebs, Krebs on Security. If you want to look up him, he always does a great write-up of all the software vulnerabilities that Microsoft is patching.
Here's a good one. What is the difference between restarting and shutting your device off and on?
There's not as much difference as there used to be, but shutting it down completely ensures that everything is actually powered off and turned off, and it kind of lets the memory of some of the components of your device actually reset. I'm actually encountering this on a tablet that I'm using,
Mm.
and restarting it doesn't do the job, but shutting it down completely does do the job. So when you restart, some services maintain their kind of like paused in memory, and then when you start it restarts, it comes back to where it was. Whereas if you shut it down completely, that memory is cleared and the device status is cleared, and so it has to completely restart the component of the device. So like your Bluetooth or your Wi-Fi or the screen or the input devices and things like that. So all that, you know, shutting it down completely is kind of a more hard reset than just doing a restart.
Yeah, I'm just kind of pulling this out of thin air, but I feel like I've been told multiple times where like it's like when you're told to unplug something and like keep it unplugged for 30 seconds or so. So it's like
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
electricity can't even.
Yeah, yeah. So devices have what we call non-volatile memory and volatile
Mhm.
memory. So non-volatile memory is RAM. That's
Mhm.
the kind of the quick memory of your device, and shutting the power off to it clears out the RAM so that when it starts back up again, it's all completely gone for sure. And now somebody's asking, I was under the impression if restarting was how it would get pushed through. Yes, 99.999% of the time, restarting is totally enough to apply your software updates. I saw somebody asking about making sure that the driver updates for your printer, your dock, your monitors, and all that. Windows does a pretty good job of applying updates to drivers and the hardware on your system. I know for me, like running a Dell system, I see a lot of Dell updates come through along with the Windows updates. So a lot of times that is integrated. Printers can be a different story. Sometimes your printer might have software that you have to install and run independently of any other software. So I have to do that for my printer. But you can turn automatic updates on once you have that firmware updater installed for your printer. Really important one is your router. So a lot of us probably set it and forget it with our routers. Hopefully your internet service provider provided the router and they provide automatic updates by default. But if you installed your own router, it's a good idea to go into the settings of your router and make sure that software updates are happening automatically. It's called a firmware update.
We got a question about like a checklist for your Internet of Things. I know that we have something like that. I'm trying to find it, and I'll put a link in.
A checklist on how to ensure our home devices are secure. I
It's like
mean,
a
that
yeah.
one, yeah,
I know
there's
we have
some
like that
interesting.
exact. Oh, it
There's some
actually I have it right here.
Lucas sent it, right?
Oh,
Did he put it in there for routers, or you have something else?
well, I have something that's 7 tips for a safer Internet of Things.
Oh yeah, cool. Yeah, throw that in there. Yeah, there's
We'll
some
put that in the
resources on our
checklist.
site for some of
Yeah.
these. Um, and so somebody asked, how do you know it needs updating? So I have lots of things attached to my computer. The checking for updates thing is a great one.
Mhm.
If it's a device that connects to your router on its own, you probably also have an app, like a companion app or some kind of login for
Mhm.
that device as well. And then there, like I have a whole bunch of smart lights like around my office and stuff. So I have an app that controls those. You can go into the app and check for updates there as well. And this is a great like it's a great thing to think about is that a lot of people forget how many devices they have connected to their networks. So go around and literally like make a list of your cameras, your smart TVs, your Apple TVs, whatever else you
Even like
have.
external hard drives.
External hard drives.
I mean, mine always is like you need to update.
Oh, really? I don't know. I don't have an external hard drive. But yes, I mean, if it's, hopefully these things will tell you, right? Like a
Yeah.
lot of manufacturers build this in, and they do turn it on by default, but not always. So it is good to kind of make a list of all the devices you have, go around and kind of like mess with the settings and see if you can find one for updates or firmware updates. And I think that's a great way to kind of start to tackle that problem.
All right. How about we have one last question? Um, and we've touched on it a little bit. It sounds like someone's a little squeamish after having a bad experience with updating their software and then their computer not working correctly. What's our advice when someone has that, which is legitimate? I mean, it's happened to me. My one time I had a whole. This was like 10 years ago. I had a whole my laptop just died, blue screen of death after an
Yeah.
update.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's where you want to make sure that you're doing backups of your systems, right?
Mhm.
Backups used to be one of the core four. I think we replaced it a while ago, but backing up your software, backing up your system to an external like thumb drive or something is a great way to recover if you happen to run into a bad update or an update doesn't get applied correctly. The specific question this person is asking about, I'm not entirely sure what the answer would be, but I wouldn't let one problem dissuade you from updating your other systems.
Yeah.
I think
Or
it's
like picking or choosing.
we kind of mentioned it earlier. Like the
Mhm.
exception to the rule where there's a problem with an update is a lesser risk than the risk of being hacked because you're not updating your systems. So there are tools out there, and if you run into something on a personal device, I would recommend taking it to like I hate to say this, but like a Geek Squad or something like that in person and getting help.
Yeah. I mean, it might also help if you have a Microsoft device, take it to them. This is what I did. I took it to the Microsoft store. Do they still have Microsoft stores or like the Apple store?
Yeah, I think they do.
Yeah.
And that's a pretty good idea too. So that's great. Yeah, remember the Geek Squad in the chat. Love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just gets professional help if something happens. I mean, there's a lot of things. If you get hacked, you're gonna have to take it in too,
Yep.
right? And we think that's way more likely to happen than a bad update, bricking your system.
Yeah. And it's like we say, like you can't be cyber proof, but you can be resilient. So software updates are a part of that.
Absolutely.
Well, I think we got through all the questions, Cliff. Yeah, we really talked about software updates. Thanks for coming, everybody. This has been a
Yeah,
lot of fun.
love the engagement. Thanks everybody for being.
Yeah.
All right, Barry. I'll see you
All
next time.
right. Bye.
Bye.